Welcome to Archery Talk 101 podcast, your guide to better archery skills. We'll bring you the latest tips, tricks, and expert advice, but that's not all. We'll also have interviews with top archers and industry professionals and reviews of the latest gear and equipment and much more. Uh, Hi, my name is Rory Canterbury. I'm going to be host of Archery Talk 101, and we have a lot of fun on this channel. We never know what's going to happen. Anywhere from starting off with all kinds of challenges getting started to having a whole lot of fun. But anyway, into it, we're going to have a good conversation with James here today. I know he's got a couple of good stories. I heard a little bit about his story that we're going to talk about here in a little bit. But I'll just let everybody know that you can watch the video of this podcast on the Archery Talk 101 Facebook group, as well as you can watch it on my YouTube channel, Learn to Fix It Yourself. Or you can even go out to archerytalk101.com and we have them out there as well. So that's the place you can watch it and see our faces, or you can listen to it on Spotify and Audible. You can also go out there and get it. So that's where you can find it to listen to it. And we're going to have a lot of fun talking with James. James, tell us a little something about yourself and introduce us to who you are.
Well, my name's James. I run BigBud Outdoors. Been running my outdoor page on YouTube for 17 years. I teach people around here in Indiana how to hunt and fish. Been doing that for the last 17 years. Pretty much, we have a dying sport, and it's good to get the next generation out and teach them archery or gun or anything that gets you out and about and in God's great country versus sitting at home on the phone or playing video games. Been doing this, been hunting now for 30 years as of yesterday.
That's a little bit of time.
A little bit.
So you say you're at Big Bubba Outdoors, right?
Yep, BigBud Outdoors.
Okay. Looks like you got a picture of you at the top. You got a picture of a nice little lake and you holding a fishing rod. Is that the right one?
What are we on? You on my YouTube?
Yeah, on YouTube.
Um, be quite honest, I really don't know what the picture
Oh,
is. Let me look. I think it should just be me with my big catfish.
yeah. There's
There. Big Bub.
Big Bub out.
BIG.
Oh, I got Big Bubba. There's when I start typing in there, like whole bunch of things showed up. Okay, oh, that's it. I see your picture now. I want to get to the right site,
Right.
because we'll actually share it and let people take a look at it, and you can talk about a little bit what you have out there. Looks like a lot of fishing stuff out there as well. A lot of us
Yeah.
as well. So let me move some stuff out of my way here. I got so much stuff open sometimes, you know how that goes.
Oh yeah.
There we go. There's your website. So if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. I didn't know about it, so I'm going to hit that subscribe button and do all of them, so I get notified when you post a cool little video.
Yep. I didn't have a lot of chance to post much this year, but like I said, I was homesteading the house and building a new garage. We had a lot of projects, but we did get out a few times fishing this year, and I tried to do some hunting videos. Um, but most of the time, I only record hunting when I'm with like my son or my daughter. I don't really record a lot of my own stuff, just because I just like sitting there watching and listening and being in the peace.
Yeah, I took my phone out this year when I went out hunting and took some pictures, and um, I was doing rifle here in Nebraska and had my camera set up all ready to go, and here comes this doe trotting down probably about 75 yards on the other side of the fence in the tree line, which we can't hunt over. They don't have permission on that property yet. So I will come down and so I turned the camera and got it going. got my rifle ready, and then it kind of run off, and three more deer can run through the field and run off, and that's all I see. You know,
It happens that way. It can be super quick or take forever.
yeah, and you know, they run probably 10, 15 yards from my ladder stand that was down there. I was set up about 65 yards from my ladder stand. But there again, it's on the property we don't have permission to hunt. So I didn't clear any paths over there because we weren't going to shoot over there. So
Right.
that's kind of the next thing is to get a hold of the farmer next door and see if we can hunt that property, at least that section right there, you know, where they're coming in and we can see it. And you know, I've just got to get them to go during the day because there's one area at the other end of the farm that they come through midnight, 1 o'clock consistently. You know, nothing really during the day. Last year I caught them in February in the morning and then another one at night. A lot of deer going through there, but they're all in the middle of the night and not sure. It's kind of a travel area. And down at the other end off the cornfield, that's where we see more deer during the day, but still not that much. So that's one of those challenges to figure out how to get them to go through there during the day.
Yeah, it's hard to figure out how to get them up on their feet. You know, you got to create bottlenecks and good safety cover. Um, it's kind of hard to do that over here, you know, because I don't have private property to where I can manage it. I used to manage a nice piece, and I managed it so well, I managed myself right off of it.
Oh,
It started producing deer. Um, I managed it for 5 years, and I only took $2 off of it in that 5 years. I took bucks off public land because I was trying to grow the herd, and I told him that I pulled grain for this farmer for free so I could have access to this 22 acres. And we started getting bucks on camera my 5th year that were pushing 180 inches.
those are big ones.
And I had cut, made pinch points, and made a safe haven in there for him to bed up. And we were letting them go, and we were taking out bad genetics. The $2 we took out, they were one was a 7.5-year-old 6 point, and then the other one was a 3-year-old that we had him both years. He grew out one horn and it came out sideways, and we took him out, got that genetics out, and we got the doe herd. When we got in there, we calculated our doe herd roughly about 15 does per buck, and we wiped that herd down to about 5 does a buck, and that's when everything started changing. And the farmer, you know, I kept in contact with him. I pulled grain with him, showed him pictures, and he showed them to a friend of his, and his friend gave him $10,000 for the next 10 years.
Oh,
So I kind of worked myself right out of that and back onto public land only.
yeah. Yeah, that seems kind of the way it goes sometimes. You know, I had one place that we were hunting and he tried to, you know, manage it more like a hunting thing where you wanted you to check in and out, and then next thing you know, it's like, well, he's got other things going on, and we end up not hunting the property anymore. But there was houses moving in that area, and that's going to mess up the hunting area a little bit. But still had a lot of trees, you know.
Yeah.
Made it a little bit tougher on some of them for rifle because, you know, you start getting neighbors in, they don't like guns going off, and you know, here in the little village I live, a gun goes off, my thought is, are you keeping your brass? Can I have it? You know, my thoughts when I start hearing somebody just doing some target practicing is like, can I have your brass?
Yeah. You know, and I got into reloading. I started studying on it about 4 years ago, and I bought everything up in the last 2 years. And I actually reloaded my first rounds this year. I'm reloading all because we hunt with straight wall cartridge here in Indiana on public land. High powered's only legal on private. And I started reloading my 350 Legend, my 450 Bushmaster, 44 Magnum, and 357 and 45 Long Colt. And my daughter got to take. She's taken other deer. That that one there is her first buck from last season,
That's a nice buck.
and that's off public land. That was done. That was taken with a 350 AR, 350 Legend AR platform, and I wanted a bigger exit hole, so I started studying, and we ended up going with Barnes STS cantilever rounds, and they pretty well double in size on impact. And she shot 2 deer with them this year, and that they didn't even take a step. Um, so getting into reloading, it was real nice. I'm saving a little bit of money, but not much. But my accuracy and groupage that I'm getting out of these rifles now are 10 folds what I was getting out of them with stock rounds.
Oh yeah, I've done it. I started reloading in 1976 when I got my first reloading
Wow.
press. And so I've reloaded a few thousand rounds. Yeah,
I bet
quite a few.
I've loaded 100 rounds total between the 45 long and the 350 Legend.
Oh, yeah, yeah, a little bit more now, but I've been doing it quite a while, and one of the things that I do to get me that perfect round is I use a trickle charger as well as a balance beam scale. I don't use the digital ones because they're not accurate enough. It's like, well, they're accurate. Well, no, they're not, because they're accurate half the least significant digit when you're weighing anything. But on a balance beam, you can get it so that it lines up with, I'm trickling one granule, one flake or one disc or cylinder, whatever it is, into it to get that perfect balance. And I have check weights so I can check it to make sure that I'm okay on that. And then
Right.
I find right in the middle, I'll do a load there, and I'll load up a half a grain and then a full grain, so I'll load with half a grain increments up and down. And I don't ever hit the max of the min. I stay off of those just because the min,
Oh yeah.
it give me a little trouble. The max can be a little trouble. So I load in between there. I stay off of at least a half a grain off the max and the min. And then you go down and shoot an indoor range and find out which one groups best for your gun. It's like, there it is. And that's how I was able to get 3 shots in the same hole with both my 270 and 30-06.
I did my 350 Legend. I have the trickle, but I have a digital scale. A lot of my stuff came out of my pawn shop. A lot of it's secondhand stuff, because reloading isn't cheap starting out.
No.
So a lot of my stuff is all secondhand RCBS stuff, and I did a 24 grain of H110 with CCI small rifle Magnum primers and those Barnes bullets at 24 grains. And then I did one at because the max load was 26, light load was 22. So I shot right in the middle at 24. And I did one that was 23 and a half. And I did one that was 24 and a half. And I did a 25. And the 24s, my daughter with a red dot, she keeps a half an inch group at 100 yards. And then I shot the 24 because that ended up being the best round for both rifles was the 24 grain. At 200 yards into my 350 Legend, I've got an eighth of an inch group.
That's good grouping.
It went from factory rounds at 200 yards. I was keeping about a 3-inch group with factory, and my daughter with her red dot, she at 100, she was only keeping like a 6-inch group, which that's deer, should kill a deer all day long with that. But me to bring her as tight as I did, that was everything to me, because we call her Annie Oakley. If she can see it, it'll drop. It's that simple.
Did she also shoot archery with you, or or just
She does. She's up to 32 pounds with her compound. Here in Indiana, 35 is deer legal. I think she'll be at 35 next year. But she does use a Carbon Express Pile Driver 390 um, crossbow for archery season right now. Um, Pretty much most everybody in the house owns a crossbow. I kind of joined into. I've worked in an archery shop for 15 years now. So, and I was always against crossbows. I was that guy that was like, it's cheating. Anybody can do it. And I'm gonna tell you now, that is the biggest load of baloney that I have ever heard that anybody can spew out of their mouth.
right.
I had crossbows cost me more deer because I can't get close enough to a tree, or there's extra movement with that crossbow that I didn't need to make, that I could have killed that deer with my eyes closed using my recurve or my compound. I I shot competition 3D comp out here. I can keep a 5-inch group on a good day, non-windy day at 75 yards all day long with my compound. My Bowtech, I've shot it since 2009 when I bought it brand new. Crossbows, I've shot every one of them in the house, but besides my newest one that came out of my pawn, and that's the only reason I own it, is because it came out of my pawn shop. As I got a Raven R20. That thing actually does do what Raven claims it'll do. It will keep a 3-inch group at 100 yards. I've shot multiple of them. All the rest of them here, they start opening up past 50. And everybody in my family knows we don't shoot deer. I believe it's unethical to shoot any deer past 40 yards. And I know that the crossbows will do it. I know my compound will do it at farther distances. But I've made enough of those mistakes in my younger days that anything past the slightest twig will send your arrow
Oh
so
yeah.
far, it's not funny. And so it's kind of a love-hate relationship in my family with compound and crossbow. My wife got into hunting 3 years ago. We tried her on compound, and she had probably the worst arm slap I have ever seen in my life. It actually cut her, and her arm was purple for 6 weeks.
Oh yeah.
And she wanted to keep trying because she really wanted to hunt with me, to have something else in common with me.
Right.
And I grabbed my daughter's crossbow and I was like, why don't you try this? And 3 shots later, she was Robin Hood and arrows, and it built her confidence back up to where she wanted to go in the woods. So I bought her a crossbow. Opening day of deer season last year, I was at the shop working, just was getting everything open when I got a phone call. Like, she's crying like, babe, I just shot one. It's dead. It's down. What do I do now? And I made a phone call, had my uncle go out and help her. She's killed 2 deer with her crossbow now. She absolutely loves it over gun. I'm a big gun fanatic. I've been smithing for over 10 years, and I own literally every straight wall cartridge that is legal in Indiana. And she has shot every gun in the house, and I acquired this year a circuit judge, and she shot it, absolute fell in love with it. She finally found a gun she liked, and she killed her first buck this year with it. Opening day of gun season, she shot 175-pound 8-point. Not a great big monster, but it's still a trophy, especially coming off public land. It's
Yeah.
probably 110, 120-inch deer. It's at my cousin's getting taxidermied now. And then I got my big one and it's being taxidermied. Um, the whole family hunts, man. I got people that come from different states that I've got into hunting. I've taken the Indiana hunting course with people now 195 times, teaching people how to hunt and getting them in and um, I'm always looking for that next new challenge in the hunting world. When I started out doing this as a youth, it was shotgun only here in Indiana. I mean, we had bow season, but I wasn't into bows then. And you only could hunt with a shotgun. Well, shotguns got too easy. So everybody told me muzzleloader was harder. So I switched to muzzleloader. I killed my first deer that year at 200 yards. And I was like, well, that was easier.
Yeah.
Got in the compound, got it to where I was tagging out every year with a compound, not even making it the gun season. Switched from it to recurve, started tagging out with recurve, switched from that to longbow. Uh, I had a bucket list that I wanted to take a whitetail deer in Indiana with every legal weapon class that is allowed. And last year I marked the last one off my bucket list, which was a pistol. I shot a 7-pointer at 7 yards with a 44 Magnum Smith & Wesson Model 29.
I know that gun well. I had the exact same one. I think
You
what
got the 4-inch or the 6-inch?
no, I got the longer one.
Oh, you got the 8-inch.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like 7.5, 8 inches. Only it's the big one, the one Dirty Harry carried in the movie.
Yeah,
No, I
I
got it.
got
So
the
happens that was it, but
I got a 4-inch that I acquired, and then I liked it so much I went and bought a Ruger Super Blackhawk this year with an 8-inch barrel, and I paired it with a red dot reticle. Um, got it dialed in with HTS cowboy loads. I really like the way those shoot. It's a 50-yard gun. I ain't claiming to be the greatest pistol master. I'm keeping a 5-inch group at 50 yards. I don't know if that's good enough, but I've hunted with enough guns that I know at 5 inches I can kill a deer at 50 yards. So
yeah. So you were out, you were hunting on your birthday was what, yesterday, I think it was, wasn't it?
yes,
Yeah, and you got a nice little story to tell about that. I'd like to hear that story.
well, I go deer hunt. I take vacation every year, first week of gun season. Tagged out or not, I always take it because I'm always either I'm after mine or I'm after teaching somebody else. Helped a while, and I just hadn't had a chance to get one, and I hit my uncle up and I was like, "Hey man, it's my birthday tomorrow." I was like, "You want to go sit with me?" And he's like, "Yeah, you know." He's like, "Why don't we go to the public land?" He goes, "I got permission on the neighbor's property." He goes, "I'll go hunt it." And he said, "You can go hunt with me, and you can hunt the public land side." And I was like, "Oh, that's that, heck yeah, man." Because he got a real, otherwise, the way it's set up, the land that I hunted, just to get to the woods, it's a 500-yard hike
It's a
from the
little bit of a
parking.
hike.
And where he got permission, this farmer's got a gate that leads right to the levee at the edge of the wood line. So I was able to park right there. And he's like, "Just take your chair." He said, "That levee's like 15 feet tall if you get back there towards the back." And I was like, "Well, all right." I was like, "I'd rather be in my stand, but I gave it a shot. Why not?" You know, it's already daylight. We waited a little bit because I'd never been in that area and I wanted to kind of see what I was doing.
Right.
because you never know what you're going to run across in the West Terre Haute River bottoms. Like, it can be swampy. It's been really dry this year, so I wasn't expecting any swampland, but there could be anything. I got in there and I just jumped on that levee and I just kept walking. And then I looked up and I was like, oh, wow, there's the river. I was like, I've walked 900 yards and didn't even know it. I looked over and I was like, well, there's a nice bean field here and there's an ag field right there. There's an old creek line here. I'm going to sit right here, see what happens. So I cleared the grass down and got my chair in there and lifted it all up and had the wind blowing right in my face. I had the perfect wind for it. And this scrub 8-point come running through at 7:30. And I was like, oh man, there's a buck. And I was like, excited. I'm trying to get in position. And he shimmied across there and I'd set up level with the thicket instead of level with the field line. And he jumped into the thicket and I needed him to take 2 steps and I could have shot him, and he turned and started down the drainage ditch. And I was like, man, I said, well, at least the big man upstairs let me see something on my birthday. That was nice. Right. I got something to tell people. I'm sitting there and I look up 450 yards. The biggest deer I've ever seen was standing out in the middle of this bean field. And I was like, I need to get him over here. He's got to cross 200 yards just to hit the public land. I was like, I hit my grunt call and he turned and shot 150 yards straight over to the edge of the field and went into that thick stuff and disappeared. I was like, well, okay. I was sitting there and I kept seeing something every now and again. I'd see something in that thicket about 200 yards down. And I was like, what in the world is that down there? So I just sat there and I was just being quiet. And my uncle messaged me. He's like, you seen anything else? And I was like, no. I was like, there's something in that thicket, but I can't tell what it is. It's over 200 yards out. And about an hour goes by, and what it was is we realized after the shot what all was going on. He shot across, and there's a rub line along that field line. That thicket kind of goes like this. So I'm seeing tips where it pops in and out. And he's working that rub line. He worked himself, took him an hour and a half to work over 450 yards. He worked himself within 92 yards of me. And I pulled up my 450 Bushmaster, and he was sitting there making this scrape. I was like, man, just step out from these trees. I had some saplings, and I really didn't want to take a front-facing shot because that was the only thing I had. And I was like, I just need you to turn one direction or the other. And he went left, and he started walking west, and he hit the bean field. And as soon as he hit the bean field, it was over. I put it on it just behind his shoulder. He was slightly quartered away from me. I hit him. He jumped up about 6 feet in the air, come back down, turned, went straight down the middle of that beans, made it 25 yards and flipped end over end and was dead. Biggest deer I have ever put my hands on. He's a taxidermist. He's going to score him out tonight, but he scored a lot of deer, and he looked at it and he told me it's at least 160 inches, which is the biggest thing I've ever killed. And to get something off of public land that size is an accomplishment for me because, I mean, as you can see, I mean, I've got them.
Yeah.
You know, my biggest is 140 inches, and that came off of private property. My biggest off of public land is 125. We don't hunt for rack here. We hunt for meat, but I still try to go for a big buck.
Right.
But I ain't going to pass up one that comes in front of me because I ain't going to lie to nobody. That little 8-point that I seen out in that field first that come in that thicket, I had his ticket punched if I could have got a clean shot, but I'm glad that I didn't. The big
right. You're muted. There we go.
The funny thing about that deer is I drive by this road every day because the hunting land is about an eighth of a mile from my house.
Well, that's cool.
And yeah, it's real close. It opened up this portion opened up 5 years ago. So it's only been open to the public for about 5 years. And he was coming out of the public land every day. I'd get home before the time changed here in Indiana. I'd be getting home about 6:45. I'd come down that road and he'd come out of that wood lot of the public land and hit that thicket and start walking down them beans on the private property. And I'd been watching him, and I told my deer all season. And he took me out and let me hunt public land. And I took him off the public land. And my uncle's like, well, he goes, that was my target, Buck. And I was like, well, I'm sorry, Unc. I was like, you're the one that, wanted me to go with you. He goes, I didn't think he was running back because up in the front, in the evenings, he's in the front where my uncle sits, and it's just tore up. I mean, he's got trees as big as my legs just shredded in there, ground scrapes everywhere. But he never sees him in the evening. He only has him in the morning. Well, I was all the way in the back, and he's bedding in the back in the morning time, and he got up out of that bed off that thicket and came out in them beans and started working his way back to me. And I believe how his line is, because when we got down there in the field, we could see, I'd say at every 10 yards, he had a ground scrape. I've never seen that many ground scrapes in my life. And he was sleeping in this island that's 450 yards out from where I was sitting. And he came out of that island into the beans. And basically what he does is he works his way across the field and then comes up in between the ag field and the beans in that thicket and hits the levee. And then he's got a line that goes down the levee line into another thicket and works his way to my uncle. And I just happened to be in the right spot at the right time.
Yeah, he kind of intercepted him on his path.
Pretty much. Like, I mean, that's kind of how it all went down. It happened so quickly. I didn't actually know how big his rack was when I first shot him. When he was in that thicket working that scrape right there, and I needed him to go left or right, I could see antlers, and that's all that I cared about. I've been sick for a week, and I'm trying to get my son his first deer, so I'm trying to tag out so I can get him his deer, and that's where we was at tonight, was trying to get him one. And I seen antlers. I was like, that's a dead deer. And I no longer looked at his head. That was something my uncles put into me at a young age. Once you know that it's got antlers, no longer look at it. Look at his body and his body only, because you can get tunnel vision, and I have seen it with people I've trained. They get tunnel vision on that rack, and I've seen them shoot the rack.
Yeah, that's what they're focusing on.
And I got that installed into me when I was very young. Once you realize what is in front of you, focus on what you're wanting to shoot. And so once I seen horns, I no longer looked at his head, didn't care what he was doing. I sat there and I was looking at his front patch and was debating in my brain, like, do I take this shot? And I just sat there and I waited, because I knew no matter what happened, I could make the shot. And he turned and I followed him as he walked real slow into the beans. And then when he stepped out, I just let it go. And then I pulled the AR down to watch him run off. And that's when I actually seen the size of this rack and realized that I had just killed the biggest deer of my life on my birthday. 30 years of hunting, and it all came together so quickly. It was it's really hard to put into words, like that the accomplishment and the feeling that I got for getting such a beautiful animal.
Right. I know I had one time I was we was kind of late getting in a tree stand, so I'm up there and get everything all up, and I hear this deer comes by, and I look, okay, it's a buck. It's archery, so buck or doe doesn't really matter. And then it steps out. I take my shot. We go get it. We haul it back out. You know, we're doing it. So then I went back to the store because at the time I owned a sporting goods store. It's sitting in the back of my truck, and I'm sitting down in the range. And I look there, and I can see the antlers sticking up above the truck. You know, the bed of the truck, and it's like that's bigger than I thought it was because I never paid attention to the rack. Once I just,
I,
hey,
I'm
that's a buck. I'm focused on. I want the kill zone for my arrow to go through, and that's all I focused on. I never even seen the rack after that.
right. I didn't realize how big mine was neither. Like we, I think everybody kind of has that tradition. Like we go and we show our buddies, what you've gotten when you kill and whatnot. And I drive a Z71 Avalanche that has the hard covers that
Right.
unfold in three pieces. I had him laying down in the bed of that truck and had to take the covers off because his antlers stuck out of the bed. And I sent that picture to a few buddies of mine. It's like, that's a nice one, bub. Not bad, not bad. And I happened to be driving through town on my way back home from showing a family member. Those same buddies called me and they was like, bub, what the hell is in the back of your truck? I was like, it's the deer I sent you the picture. They was like, no, that can't be that deer. They was like, that deer don't look that big. They was like, your antlers are hanging clean out of the bed of that truck. And I was like, I know. I was like, I told you he's the biggest thing I'd ever shot. Like, and within an hour, I probably had 50 people here at my house to come see him because the picture just did. He field dressed at 240 pounds.
That's a big deer.
Yeah, the pictures I got of him do not do this thing just. I could barely get my hand around, like my fingers would not touch, like they were gapped like that to get around the base of his antlers. I have no idea. I didn't measure anything else out. I'll know all that when I get it back from my cousin. I'm actually having a backpack mount done. I have regular mounts, and I've always thought that backpack mount looks super cool. So I'm getting a backpack mount done on him. And I my family's been blessed this year during deer season. I mean that
Sounds like it.
my first day of vacation was Friday, the 17th, and I went out on a scouting trip. And I hunt no matter what. And basically, what I was doing, I was going to go sit until 9:30, and then get up and walk the property and see what I thought of it for my son. And I just went and set up on this ag field, popped my ground blind up. Was like, oh, we'll sit till 9:30. 7:05, I had a doe come in, stuck her head in the ground blind, was looking at me, and I was like, okay. I said, you're going in the freezer as soon as you get out of my blind. It took her 25 minutes to get out, and she stepped out and was, doing her thing. It was up and down trying to paint a picture to see what I was. And I just sat there, didn't move, and she finally went on into that ag field, got out about 22 yards, and I just let her have it. She went 35 yards and died. And it was an amazing hunt too. Like I have so many stories and funny stories of deer hunting, and I have great memories with family and my daughter. Like it's rough though because public land here is dangerous.
Oh yeah. Well,
Oh yeah. 3 years
you get
ago,
a lot of people out there. It can be dangerous.
3 years ago, I had a spot that I hunted on public land it's about a 5.5 mile hike from where the DNR have the walking path. It's not like it's a hard walk. It's just an old dirt road before it hits. They just don't want you back there because guys were rutting it up real bad.
Yeah.
So you have to walk all of it. And my daughter was getting ready to shoot her first buck at that time. It was a nice little 4 pointer come out from the river bottom from getting a drink. And I was videoing, I got it all on video. It was one I didn't post on my YouTube page because we'll just say that I had some very bad language in that one that you've never seen a big feller like me come unglued as fast as I did. I thought she had shot. She come back and was holding her face like this. A guy behind us shot through our ground blind and hit her gun stock with her head on it.
Well, that was close.
And I called a friend of mine that's a game warden. I told him, I said, you got 10 minutes to be here or you're going to take me to jail in handcuffs and I will wrap an orange jumpsuit. I held that man right there where he was at. I told him, I said, you leave. I said, you won't walk out of this woods. I said, I promise you. I said, you're going to wait for the DNR. He shot through there with a 243 rifle, which is illegal automatically to be on public land. And he's like, well, I didn't see you. Game warden showed up and walked straight to us because the game warden could see the orange on my blind 250 yards away. Yeah. Some guy from Missouri. I've had people steal my stands. I've had people steal my cameras. Like, I leave a note nowadays, and it's so far it's worked. I leave a note right on it. Please don't take my stand. If I'm not in it, you can hunt it. This is my phone number. If you would like to call and see if I'm coming to hunt that day or send me a text, I don't care. Just don't take my stand. And so far for the last 3 years, that has worked. But it's sad that I've had to go to that extent. But right now we're in the works of trying to find a piece of private land. But we've been getting it done. My daughter's gotten two, my wife's got two, and I've gotten three so far this year.
How many tags do you guys get up there?
Um, well, you're allowed we have a bundle. The bundle comes with people mistake actually what the bundle truly is. The bundle is 3 tags. Those 3 tags covers you for every season. You have an either or sex archery tag, you have an either or sex muzzleloader tag, and you have a buck tag. Now, if you kill your buck, those 2 tags can be turned into either or sex for archery or muzzleloader become doe tags. Or if you're on private land, they can be bonus antlerless. And then after those 3 initial tags are taken, you have a county quota of bonus antlerless tags. And we hunt multiple counties, but just here in Vigo County, I can take 5 deer. My wife can take 5, my daughter can take 5, and on youth, the youth only has to buy 1 license. It covers them for every county, every bonus antlerless. So my daughter pretty much has umpteenth amount of tags if I had the land for her to hunt it.
Yeah.
Um, but normally I just fill my 3 from my bundle and I'm done. Like I bought one more tag. I bought another doe tag so I can keep going out with my son and sit with him and try and help him get his first one. And my cousin messaged me and asked me if I could get him a deer because he can't hunt this year. So I'm gonna try and shoot him one. So I bought a bonus antlerless tag, and well, I bought it's going to be a muzzleloader. I bought a muzzleloader tag. I'm not going back out till muzzleloader season because it's an either or sex tag, and I feel like I have a better chance of now with all the gunshots and down in the river bottoms and on public land. The deer aren't getting as close as they was before gun season, so I bought a muzzleloader tag so I can shoot a doe during muzzleloader for my cousin, which starts in another 3 weeks from today. We should have. Yeah. This weekend was opening weekend. Next weekend, the weekend after. So 3 Saturdays from now will be opening weekend of muzzleloader here in Indiana, and I'm going to try and take one more for him.
Yeah, we have our muzzleloader seasons the whole month of December. So that's coming up here pretty soon. And right now, rifle is over, and something that's open is archery. And we have archery tag and we have muzzleloader tag. You can have two that allow you to take a buck. So if you get an archery tag and a muzzleloader tag, then the only thing left is they have your season choice tag, which is antlerless, and that's good for archery, rifle, muzzleloader, and even the late January rifle season. So that's nice tag because it covers all the different weapons and seasons, but it's only doe only. But
right
where I'm at, it's like we got two small bucks, a little bitty spike, and then one nice buck, and it's like, well, chances are probably going to see more does than we'll do the bucks. So
we had. I'd been hunting a small piece of public land, and I had 2 acres that was private attached to it, and I've had that 2 acres the last 2 years, so we've been able to take does during gun season. And I've been hunting that land before it was public. I had permission from that farmer that owned it before public owned it. I'd been hunting that land for 25 years. And I've only ever in my entire life seen maybe 6 hunters out there during firearm season. I got a phone call opening morning saying that the lady that had given me permission had passed away. Her grandson had called me and told me I had to take my stands down, that I couldn't hunt there the rest of the year. And I asked him if we could finish out opening weekend because my wife was already out there. They called me that morning, opening day of gun season. I was like, we're kind of already in the trees. Like, can we finish out the day? And he's like, yeah, you can finish out the day, but I want the stands off the property. We're not going to allow any hunting. I was like, oh, okay, no problem. And a gator come in about 10 minutes after daylight, and I'm not joking, like 40 people unloaded out of these two gators. And I don't know if they thought they bought all that land by the lake or what, but I had 9 nice bucks on camera. They killed every one of them. They killed 9 big bucks that were over 8 points. We're talking deer from 120 inches to the biggest one. We estimated him at about 170. And we had 14 scrub bucks on camera and an umpteenth amount of does. And I'm talking by 7:30, I refused to get out of my stand because gunshots did not stop until 9:15. I mean, they were nonstop. They killed a total of 43 deer out of those 30 men that went in there in a matter of hours. And I've never seen anything like that. It was crazy.
Yeah, that area is not going to be worth hunting anyway after all that commotion going on and taking that many out.
Yeah, last time that was done was almost 8 years ago when it became public land. They did that, and it just now, year before last, is when we started seeing bucks again. And we could go out there. I have 14 cameras just strategically placed throughout the land, and we would get the same few does on most of the cameras. And then the following year, it started getting better. We've been doing this for 4 years hunting it, and we'd only take one or two does. Last year, my wife got her very first buck with my help. I did all the rattling and calling. Um, so she says that she doesn't count that as her first one because I did all the work calling it in, and she shot a spike, and I, I'm that firm believer. I don't care what anybody's got to say. Uncle Ted is like one of my idols when it comes to deer hunting, and he has said it best. Nobody gives you the right to tell you what you can and cannot take if you've legally purchased that tag and you have legally taken that animal. Who are you to degrade that person? Let them shoot the spike. Let them shoot whatever. And that was my wife's last day to hunt, and she got a spike. I called him right into her. This year, that was the only buck taken off that land in 3 years. This year, we had bucks we've never seen before. They finally moved back in there, and I was like, "Man, this place is about to start booming in the next couple of years. We're gonna be all right." And she had a target buck. He wasn't even the biggest buck on her camera, but she had a target buck. She had a run in with him 2 years ago as a scrub 6-pointer. He got hit by a car, and his shoulder like sticks out, like has a point that kind of sticks off of it, about as rounded. Like, I don't know if it was like his clavicle broke and bent over. But she missed him that year 2 years ago, 3 seasons ago. Yeah, 2 seasons ago, and he was a 6. Well, we seen him last year, and he was a small 8, and he's got a big lump on the side of his face. We think that's from that car too, because it all that appeared after he was hit. And then this year we had him on camera again. He's another scrub. He was a scrub 8 again, but he's very distinctive with that shoulder and that marking on his face. And she actually got to take him. She missed him with a crossbow that year, and that's the buck she actually got to take this year with her 45 long colt.
Oh, cool.
So she's got some history behind him, and I was like, well, that's the only one that I was like, there's been a lot of shots. I don't know what's all been taken. And I messaged all my buddies, and man, after seeing everything that was taken and heard, I was like, well, we've got to find new public land. I was like, there's no way we're going to be able to hunt this next year. Like, that many deer in that small of an area, it's runt for at least another 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty. When they first made it public land, you get 40 hunters in there, and it just kill anything and everything, and it kind of decimate the land. And now it's no good for anybody for a long time.
Yeah. And a lot of guys, I mean, I get it. You might not have a lot of time to hunt, and gun season's the easiest time to do it. I
Right.
get that, but you got to think, and that's the biggest problem. That's the same problem we have in the fishing world. You have to think about the next generation.
Right.
If you go in and you just wipe everything out, you're taking away from the next generation, and you're helping kill a sport that's already dying. And it just amazes me the way some people, how they are, and the things
Yeah.
that you see. I mean, there's so much that I would like to see done around here that just doesn't happen. The one thing that I am proud that Indiana has finally done, all of our tags went up. The year that everybody complained about, the year that our tags went up in price, the year our tags went up in price, they opened up 23 new public lands. That's our money at work.
Right.
But what we needed was the out of state tags to go up. We had the lowest out of state tags of everybody. Our bundle for an out of state before they went up last year was $165 for 3 deer. You go over right across the border here in Illinois, it's $500 to shoot one buck.
Yeah, I don't know what it is here in Nebraska. I haven't really paid attention, but it's and that's not, package of three. It's one tag for one deer.
Right.
And I think it's right at that $150, $200 range.
Right.
There's
And
no
that was
club, so I can't really tell you on that, but
what ours was for 3. And if I remember right, it's up to like $300 or $400 now. I'd have to double check it, but they took it up a significant amount this time. Indiana has gotten a lot more out of stater hunters than we've ever had, because we're starting to put down Booney Crockett's every year.
oh yeah.
And for the last 3 years, they have the top 10 states for deer hunting. And the last 3 years, we actually booted Illinois out of 3rd place, and we've taken the top 3 place spots the last 3 years running here in Indiana.
So that's that's why you're going to get more out of state hunters. You start getting them nice big ones, and
Yeah,
yeah, it's definitely an advantage or disadvantage. Advantage you have, and a disadvantage that now you got more out of state hunters coming in to hunt as well.
absolutely. But we've got a pretty good system. Unlike a lot of places, we only allow one buck here in Indiana. I'm old enough that I can remember when I started when we had a 2 buck law. When I was younger, and we went to 1 buck, and that has really helped our population, because when I was younger, like, I didn't kill bucks until I hit my teenage years. Like, it took me a long time to get my first one. But I can remember my uncles, they'd shoot the first scrub buck come by, meat in the
Yeah.
freezer. And then they'd hold off the rest of the year because they knew they had that other buck tag. They would be picky on the second one. Well, now, without that second buck tag, guys are more picky on what they shoot,
Right.
and they're picking better selection of deer, and it's really helped our population.
Yeah, when you force them down to one, I know Nebraska for a long time, had 2 tags like you get 2 deer. That was it, no more. And some of them were either sex, some of them were doe only, some were buck only, but you only had 2 tags, and then they had so many, then they start opening up that season choice. When they've come out, many years ago, they were 2 antlerless deer on 1 tag, and now it's back down to just 1. But yeah, it's interesting to figure out what each state has got different things coming back in, and it's kind of interesting. Each state's got their own little laws. You can try and figure them out, and ours here in Nebraska is fairly simple. I know Iowa next door, they've got early season, late season, early, all kinds of different ones. Like, it starts here and this one stops, and this one starts and this one stops. Like, it's like, how do I keep it straight? I don't hunt Iowa, so I don't worry about it.
Right. Indiana's pretty straightforward. October 1st is opening day of archery season. Archery season technically never goes out. It runs all the way through till January. Gun season is always the first Saturday after Veterans Day. this year everybody was complaining because, Veterans Day fell on a Saturday. So
Yeah.
it put our opening weekend of gun season all the way back to November 18th, which most guys were complaining because Indiana is one of the rare states that our gun season is usually in prime peak of the rut. And this year it wasn't. Then after that, gun season runs. It's 3 weekends and 2 weeks. So you got the first weekend, then it runs that week. Second weekend, then runs through that week, and then ends that following Sunday. Then you have a 5-day break into December, and then that first Saturday opens up muzzleloader, and muzzleloader's the same way. It runs 3 weekends, 2 weeks, and then you finish out with archery equipment.
You got it straight anyway. Of course,
I've been doing it.
you're
I've
gonna
been doing it for 30 years, so I hope I got it straight.
yeah. Yeah, it's kind of interesting here, all the different stories. And um you know on the crossbows, I always figure if it gets you in the field during archery using crossbow, go for it. Like your
Go
daughter, she can't use a compound right now, but should she be restricted from not going into the field and hunting?
correct, and that's the way. Like I was on that boat for a long time of you know crossbows are bad, and my daughter is what changed that in me
Right.
because it made me learn more about a crossbow, what a crossbow actually can do, how far it can actually shoot. And if it wasn't for that crossbow, she wouldn't have ever gotten out and got into it as much as she did because she learned the buck that she took last season is probably got more meaning to her than anything else because
Yeah.
I started her in archery and I taught her about game paths and about how they moved and last year I decided that I felt that that was her third year. I was like, she knows a lot. I bought her a quad pod to get her off the ground so she couldn't be shot at again. And I told her, I was like, baby, I said, I want you to pick your own hunting spot this year on public land. And we went go fishing one day and down the river bottoms. And she said, Dad, I want to hunt right there. I was like, right there? She's like, yep. I she goes, that I'm gonna kill a big nanny doe in there. I just know it. Well, we'll see what happens when it gets closer season. We'll go in there and we'll scout it. Well, it ended up being put in corn. So she picked this cubby out and it was right in the middle of the cornfield. And I was like, well, we're not going to trot through his crops to get your pot in there. I said, how about we just go to the end of the field and we'll go in there? She said, okay. So I walked her in there and she started walking around. She goes, well, Dad, there's like 6 trails right here. I want to hunt right here. I said, kid, we're only 10 yards from the field. Are you sure you don't want to look around? She's like, no, Dad, this is it. Everything against my better judgment of all my years of hunting. I put her camera there. I put her pot in there. She had 109 pictures of the same 5 bucks, and every one of them was at night. And that big 8-pointer, she called him Shadow. And she's like, Daddy, I'm going to get him. And I was like, well, I said, we work it right. I said, I think we can get him during rut, get him up during the daylight. Opening day youth season, we go climbing in there. And as a crow flies, my buddy's sitting with his daughter about 250 yards away. And right about 11:15, I hear pow. I looked at my daughter and I said, that was Hannah. Like, I know that 350 Legend gun when it goes off. I've heard it enough. Sure enough, my phone vibrates. We shot one. All right, man, give me another 45 minutes and we'll get down and I'll come help you find it. I looked over and I had 4 bucks sitting over on my right shoulder. And I told her, I was like, as soon as this buck quits looking at Daddy, I said, I'm going to move. And I said, you need to get over here and get in my chair. And that little buck quit looking up at me. And I got out of the chair. And then she's sitting there looking. I said, which one are you going to shoot? And she's like, Dad, you see that big one behind that tree? Yeah, it's got bigger body than all the rest of them. She goes, I can hit it. I can see its shoulder. She goes, but it ain't, I don't know if it's a buck or a doe. I said, well, right now, I said, you have tags for both during youth season. You go ahead and take it if that's what you want. She's like, all right, Dad. She put that legend on his shoulder, pulled the trigger. That thing hit the ground, come back up, and walked around out just outside the tree. And all I seen was antlers, and all I could say was, look what you did. Look what you did. And it fell over and died. And to me, that was more of an accomplishment in my hunting world than anything else because I taught her what to look for. I taught her everything she knows about hunting, and she chose that spot by off of what she learned and her belly. Because I told her, no matter what you see, your stomach will never lie to you, and I'm a firm believer in that. I'll walk through woods, and if I see signs, cool. But if my gut doesn't tell me that's where I need to be, I won't hunt there. And she's like, Dad, my stomach says this is it. And it was it. And she killed the biggest deer out of the entire family last year. Giant 8-point, field dressed it. And we have been very blessed at getting deer over 200 pounds, which doesn't happen a lot on public land, but it does happen.
Right.
And he field dressed at 235, and he gross scores at 134 and an 8.
That's a big deer. And she picked the spot. She made the shot.
Yeah, and like that is such a proud dad moment for me that it's hard to explain. Like the same as when my wife got hers. Like I get probably more enjoyment out of watching my children and my wife and the people I teach get a little deer versus what I just took yesterday. I ain't saying I wasn't excited. I cried, everything. I went through every which emotion except for angry. Like any emotion you can think of, I went through it yesterday except for angry. All in one lick because that was the biggest thing I've ever taken. But it still doesn't compare to when they get theirs.
Right.
And that I believe that's the reason I have the drive that I do to keep doing what I do, because knowing what I know and passing it along and watching someone else become a successful hunter, to me, in my eyes, that is another generation that's going to be out there.
Yeah.
You know, I want to be able to sit like I did, you know, like I made the post yesterday, and I thank the good Lord for letting me take the deer that I got, because I'm 100% believer that the big man upstairs presents you with what he wants you to take. I know people put in a lot of hard work and they find it, but I'm gonna tell you now, if God didn't want that deer down, you're not going to take it.
Right.
And I made my post thanking God and that it was my birthday, and what made it the greatest was the man that really mentored me and taught me is my Uncle Mark. And I went hunting with him, and he was there with me when I shot my first buck. He was there when I shot my first big buck right there. He was there with me when I just killed my biggest buck to date, which was yesterday. to have your mentor call and ask you for help and to ask your advice because you've become such a good hunter and learned so much is a whole different experience and feeling
Yeah,
than just going out and harvesting one.
yeah, that kind of validates, he's taught you, passed on everything, and you've taken it and run with it, and now you've gained experience beyond what he had, and then you hope to pass that on to your kids and grandkids, so they can
Yeah,
pass your skills.
and and I have made the statement, like, I don't know how many times, that between my daughter and my son, by the time my son's gotten a late start, um, he's just now getting into hunting. You give him 5 years and he'll be at the level that I'm at with his drive and his passion and how much he has learned from me already. He decided just off of what I taught him during fishing season this year that he was going to pick his own spot. And now he hasn't shot one. He come close to getting one with his bow, but he let it walk. Um, he felt that it was too young of a fawn. He felt that it was a fawn that had just lost its spots, and the bigger one was in the weeds, and he didn't have a shot. He has picked his own spot. He's got deer. He's only been able to hunt 3 times, and he's seen deer every time he's been out.
Hmm.
I believe he's going to get one. Now, my daughter, on the other hand, by the time she's 16, she'll surpass me. There's not a doubt in my mind she'll surpass me. The knowledge that this little girl has um, is incredible. I went and I worked at a butcher shop for 5 years for free for a friend of mine at a deer butcher because I ain't gonna lie to nobody. I ain't got a lot of money, and processing is expensive.
Right.
So I wanted to learn how to do everything myself. I process everything. I don't take nothing anywhere. And when my wife killed her buck, she wanted to process it herself, and I was going to go outside and teach her. And my 9-year-old said, "No, Daddy, I got this."
Hmm.
And my 9-year-old taught her mother how to butcher an entire deer in an hour.
That's really
It,
great.
yeah, it's hunting in my family. I got into hunting, like, I still hunt like I can't afford food. I was raised very poor. My father and mother did an amazing job to make sure we had everything we needed. But if I could bring home deer to make it easier on my father or my mother of buying groceries, that was my drive. That was my giddy up, I guess you would call it, to push forward, to keep going, like, you know, and I still hunt that way to this day. Like, I hunt like I don't know where my next meal's coming from. And that's what gives me the drive to go out. And I've taught my children to hunt that way too. And it is a preference in my house. It's not a necessity. But when the first deer drops, we stop buying meat at the grocery store, and we live on deer all winter throughout all spring. And it used to be the deer didn't drop until late October, early November when Dad got it. And now they're dropping end of September during early youth. And that really kind of puts everybody else on alert, like, hey, we got to keep this going. And I have 2 deep freezers full right now. I have not bought groceries at the grocery store since September 28th. I've not bought a single piece of meat for my house.
And that's good. You get enough, and you don't have to ever buy anything. Just eat venison, and I think it tastes
Yeah.
better than beef anyway.
Oh, absolutely. I am 100% on you on that. And I've learned different ways of cooking game. Um, the one thing that I did learn, um, I just oh, I talk to everybody. I don't care who you are, what you know, or what you think you know. There is somebody out there that knows something that you do not.
Right.
And I talked to this old feller, I don't know, about 5 or 6 years ago. I've always let my deer hang a little bit, but he told me, he said, man, he said, take your deer. He said, you get a big buck. He said, I'll tell you how to get that game taste out and make him tender. I was like, all right, I'm listening. You got my interest. I want to see what because everybody's got their own remedy for the wild game taste.
Right.
And he's like, take that deer and lift him up 2 feet off the ground. He said, skin him down, lift him up 2 feet off the ground. He said, and leave the hide on his neck. He said, if you don't plan on caping him out. He said, and then if it ain't cold enough, he said, take your big old ice bag and stick in his chest. He said, let him hang there for 3 days. He said, and I guarantee you that deer's head will be back on the ground in 3 days. I was like, okay. He said, that deer, they swell and get all that testosterone inside their meat. He said, you let them hang for 3 days. He said, that'll all drain out. He said, and they're hot. He said, their meat will stretch and get super tender. And he said, there'll still be some game taste, but not as much. So I tried it the first year that I killed one. And I'm gonna tell you now, that was a game changer. I let everything hang for 3 days or longer now and let them stretch. That is, and it's not that the rope stretch, because I have a 3,000 pound cable that mine are hung on. The cable does not stretch.
No, they don't stretch.
That is the deer that is stretching. And that buck that I shot yesterday, he's hanging right now. It's 29 degrees outside. He's hanging. He ain't being touched for another 2 days. And he has already came down almost 6 inches closer to the ground in one day's hang. And that is an amazing little tip that man gave me, and it really did make the meat more tender. Now my children say I don't taste game taste. I could skin that deer, butcher it right now and eat it, and I won't taste it. I've been raised on it that long. Now my children can taste the game taste, and they tell me since I've let them hang that they don't taste it no more. So I believe there's something behind it.
Yeah.
I have an aunt that absolute hates venison, and I cooked her some deer steaks last year. I cooked them up for a family event, and she ate 2 of them before I told her what they were. And she said, there's no way. She said, there ain't no game taste in it. I said, well, I learned a different way of doing it, and I guess it works. And she said, well, she goes, I'll eat it as long as you're the one cleaning it like this. She goes, I'll eat it every time. And she's asked me for deer now. Like I I try to help out anybody in my family. Um, on good years, we have a cat sanctuary. I try to donate a deer to the cat sanctuary. They have it's a free zoo type thing, I guess you'd call it. They have like a black panther, a lion, a tiger, and um, I think a cheetah. And they they have a donation where you can donate deer to them. And I've donated a deer to them every year since 2008 to that cat sanctuary. Um, since 2014 is when I found out about it. We have Feed the Hungry here in Indiana.
Yeah.
You can donate your deer, and you just take it to a processing plant that participates in it, and you drop it off and tell them that you're donating it, and they will package it out and ship it to the hungry and needy that need it. And I try to donate a deer there. Once I fill 2 freezers, that's enough to last me all the way until about June of next year. And it usually takes 5 deer to do that, and I've hit that already. So the next one that goes down, like my son's, if he gets one or if I shoot another one, we'll be donating to the hungry this year again.
That's good when you have all the meat you need, and there's you'd have to get another freezer to hold any more. And
yeah, I can do 5 in the 2 small chest freezers I have. I don't have large deep freezers. I think they're like 18 cubic feet or something like that. Just the little small stand up ones. They're not very big. I'd say it's probably 2.5 feet wide by like 3.5 feet tall. So nothing major that we fill up. And then from there, like I said, if a family member needs it, I give it to them first. But if nobody needs it, I donate to the hungry, and I donate to the cat sanctuary every year.
that's good. You have a lot of deer that you can take, that you can do that. Where other states you don't have that many extras that you can get. So it's nice that you can do that when you have extras like that.
Yeah, and we're quite blessed in the area that we are with, is the abundancy of public land that we have. Um, from where I sit, within less than a 50-mile radius, there's almost a 500,000 acres.
Oh, yeah. You got a lot of public land.
We have Green Valley, Wabashiki. The ones that we hunt, I have 3 FWA River Initiative properties. I have 2 state properties and 5 FWA managed properties. And between all those, that's almost a 500,000 acres within 50-mile driving of my house.
That's just a day to work for me.
Right. We have an abundancy. It's not like we don't. It is very hard. It's not like it's easy hunting. Pretty much we scout all year. Like every fishing trip is a scouting trip. Every trip to the woods is a scouting trip. Every mushroom hunt is a scouting trip. Because 90% of that is river bottoms. And you're at the mercy of Mother Nature. That's pretty much how we ended up back up on that little 28 acres, and I ended up with that little 2-acre piece. Is 3 years ago, we had all our tree stands all down on the river bottoms, because there's only one that we can hunt that's not river bottoms. But opening weekend of gun season, it's a draw-in hunt only for that property. So we had all of our stands strategically placed throughout multiple places in the river bottoms, and it flooded. And we lost every stand position we had for opening weekend of gun season. And I scrambled, and I had 2 days to figure it out. And luckily we did, and we were successful that year, all on a whim. And that kind of is what got us back on that property. And we've been staying out of the river bottoms. I grew up in them bottoms. I've hunted them 30 years, my whole life. And when I lost that this year, I've pretty much went back into knowing what I've went off of before. That's kind of why I sat in that ag field the other day. It was a place I hunted, 10 years ago. I haven't been in there in 10 years. Sat down, killed a doe my first sit. Like, it sometimes it happens that way, sometimes it don't. Like tonight, I went to a spot that I've hunted. It's probably been 15 years since I've been in that spot. We went in there today. Didn't look too bad. We had a nice couple ground scrapes not too far from us. Didn't have a very good wind for the setup we had. We seen one small buck at about 150 yards. Never got a clean enough shot for my son. So we just waited and we watched that deer pretty much all the way till dark. And then we popped the blind down as quiet as possible. It was still over there. And we slid out, hit the field, and we walked the field line down so we was quiet as possible. And we're going to try and get back in there on him. Like, there's lots of places that are really good, and there's lots of places that look good that are just travel corridors.
Yeah,
And you never see nothing.
that's where the land, the one property I have is just travel corridor. They're going through there at night, and on the one cornfield side, we do see them in that field, and they do come along that tree line, but sometimes during the day, but mostly, the traffic is at night. But
Is it private land that you're on?
yeah,
Have you thought about making a brush line for the bucks to bed up in? Give them a brush area?
there is on the alfalfa side. There is an area that's a lot of grass and stuff down there. I do see a lot of deer activity down there. Um, there's not a lot of land that's not already in crops. A lot of farmers, they'll take pretty much about as close as they can to the tree line, and we do
Right.
one spot in the one corner that there's some grass in the corner because they're not going to farm that corner because you really can't get tractors in and out of there very well.
Well, that's pretty much how it is here. What we do is we'll take like old little saplings and stuff, and we'll go
Yeah.
out in early spring and we'll cut them down, and we'll make a punch bowl around that grass, and make that like a small wall right there for a bedding area, and make it a pinch point where they have to walk through there, and it gives them a safe haven, and it makes the bucks feel more safe where they have that grass. They're laying in that grass, but all that brush is piled up, and it makes them feel more comfortable with being in there as if it's a thicket. And they'll walk that and then get out into the woods. And that's how we've brought a lot more bucks into the daylight, into the areas that we want.
Oh, so maybe taking that one corner because that's kind of where got some good activity there, and just like I said, just make kind of a little area that's kind of secluded back there. And
Yeah, like brush it up about chest high, to
yeah,
where it would be over a deer's back, and leave a small few little pieces here and there, openings where they can get in and out, but you can still see into it, and brush that up, and they will take that over and they will turn that into their own permanent bedding. And what you're doing is you're pushing him to where you want him to bed, and then from there it's just figuring out what time he's going in. And once you've done that, it's over.
yeah, we'll have to try that. So you figure out something to get in there during the day.
That's what we did for that small 8 that the wife took this year. He come in uh, off her stand. She's in a basically, it's like an open timber, and then
Yeah.
we got this lot of down trees in this one spot that's got this patch of high grass by the lake and a bunch of saplings. And we went through and we cut all them saplings out. And what we did is we ran them along the lake edge about 10 yards off the lake in the high grass along the wooded edge. And then we came and did it this way and made like a funnel and funneled him to that thicket area right beside her. And then we started going through and we started cutting trees out of that thicket and thinning that thicket down. And that's what we used to build that up. and that buck come right up out of that lake and walked right through that funnel and went right up to her 20 yards, and she laid him over.
We'll have to try that. Something to do anyway.
I I I had a feller when I started managing that property. I had a feller that has got bigger land that he had the deer doctor. I guess he's real famous on TV. He paid him a whole bunch of money, and that guy come in and like they pushed a bunch of stuff down with a dozer and cut these lanes. And he was telling me how they did it. Well, I don't have access to stuff like that, and a lot of stuff I do is public land, so it's not like I can take and just bulldoze stuff over.
Right.
So I kind of got the concept of what they were doing, and I kind of built that myself with what I'm able to do with hand saws and tree loppers, and it's worked. It really has. I've made my own funnel points, and it's worked for us for the last. Well, I've been doing it for the last like 10 years, and I change it every year. I learn different things and different movements, and we use cameras early season to see what's where and where they're moving, and we start figuring out their patterns, and then we start putting our thickets together from there.
I'll have to take a look at it. Something to work on.
Oh yeah.
Our other property's got a creek running through it, and then on the other side of the creek is where all the trees are, and we have a little bit of area there that belongs to the farmer, then this fence, so most of it's there. But when we shoot in there, on that creek, the other side of the creek, you got to wade through the creek to get there and bring waders.
Yeah, I fixed that problem mine too. We have a creek. I don't know how wide your creek is, but we have a creek that's 5.5 feet deep, but it's only 4 foot wide. And I took 2x6s and laid them across it, and then put a 2x4 underneath it, so it gave it so it wouldn't bend as much. And we use a little bridge. That's how we get across.
Yeah, right now the creek is down quite a ways, but it's about probably 3 feet deep, but maybe about 10 feet wide.
Ooh,
So it's
yeah, I don't.
wide, but it's not very deep.
Right.
You know,
I don't know how I'd build a bridge on something that's 10 feet wide.
well, all we do is put some culverts in there, so the water still flow through it, and give you something that you can walk on, and just put them in that way, and then put bricks over top of them so you still get through. But when it floods, it all wash it away anyway. We have
Right.
a farm that my son built right on the river, but the last flood we had washed away one of the legs, just kind of hanging there with a bunch of concrete on the end of it, because it just washed that much the land away, and we had a pretty good flood here a couple of years ago.
About 3 years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah,
It's when Indiana had that was our last big flood. That was the year that I lost all my property down in the river bottoms.
yeah. Yeah, it was the whole field was flooded, all full of sand and stuff, and rutted, and yeah, it was even flooded over the road going in to the village I live, and there's only one paved road in, and the other road comes across, it goes down where the creek is, and of course it was way over flooded. You didn't need a boat to get across that, and the other one is coming in field from to the gravel road coming in. And when I'm coming in, coming home, and it's well, there's water over the road, but I'm not going to worry about it because I can actually see the road. So I drove on in. It's like, I'm not going to get stuck out here. I'd rather
Right.
get home.
Well, I hate to cut this call even shorter, but the wife's preparing for tomorrow's Thanksgiving dinner, and I need to get in there and help.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's been great talking with you.
Yeah,
That we got connected
absolutely.
up. It's a lot of fun, a lot of interesting stories. A lot of stories, not archery.
I keep blowing my phone up, but yes, keep that for hamburger. They're butchering a deer, and they need my. Well, I appreciate you letting me on, and maybe we can do this again, and
Yeah,
maybe one day we can get together, and maybe I can come down and see where you hunt.
yeah, that'd be good. We could put a little trip together and
Yeah, because I'm trying to branch out and try and hunt other states now. Like I've accomplished everything I wanted to in Indiana, and I want to try and see what I know here, how different it is in other states.
yeah, it's different. So yeah, it's been great talking with you. My name is Roy Canterbury, and I've been your host on Arch Talk 101, and we'll see you on the next one.